Welcome to this week's Emerge 5, and in this week's episode, we're going to be looking at the 2021 Global Security Insights Report from VMware. And please stick around to the end of the show for a special interview with one of our long-time returning guests, who is always kind enough to speak to us about these reports. That's Rick McElroy, Principal Cybersecurity Strategist of VMware Security Business Unit, for his thoughts on this report. So kicking us off at number 5 here, we have security concerns are holding back the adoption of AI. The next frontier for business innovation may be artificial intelligence, but more than half of respondents worldwide, that's 56%, agree security concerns are holding them back from embracing AI and ML-based apps to improve such services. Where 63% of respondents agree that their ability to innovate depends on their building and getting apps into the hands of employees and customers more securely, meaning most of the respondents just feel they're unable to respond to the digital opportunity. Number 4, applications and workloads are the top CISO concerns. Applications and workloads are viewed as the most vulnerable points on the data journey. 63% of respondents agree they need better visibility over data and apps in order to preempt attacks. 60% of respondents also shared that their senior leadership team feels increasingly worried about bringing new applications to market because of the growing threat and damage of cyber attacks. However, the positive is that nearly 2/3 agree they need to view security differently than they have previously as the attack surface has expanded. Number 3, a lack of urgency despite a surge in material breaches. 81% of respondents have suffered a breach in the last 12 months, with 4 out of 5 breaches considered material, requiring reporting to regulators or the involvement of an incident response team. Only 56% say they fear a material breach in the next year, and just over 1/3 of 41% have updated their security policy and approach to mitigate the risk. The number of breaches has risen, with respondents who had a cyber attack reporting 2.35 breaches on average per year. Number 2, cloud-first security strategies are now universal. 98% of respondents already use or plan to use a cloud-first security strategy, but the move to cloud has expanded the threat surface. Nearly 2/3, 61%, agree they need to view security differently now that the attack surface has expanded. 43% of respondents said they plan to build more security into their infrastructure and apps and reduce the number of point solutions. Overall, of where the cloud adoption market is at, 46% say they have been using a cloud-first approach for more than 1 year, while 30% say they have been cloud-first for less than 12 months. Finally, number 1 here, we have resurgence of ransomware and remote work creates unpredictable attack surface. 76% of respondents said attack volumes had increased, with the majority pointing to employees working from home as the cause, and 79% said attacks have become more sophisticated. Cloud-based attacks were the most frequently experienced attack type in the past year, whereas the leading breach causes were third-party apps at 14% and ransomware also 14%. The 3 top vectors that cause breaches of third-party apps, ransomware, and out-of-date security tech and process weaknesses build a strong picture of external threats and internal weaknesses. Okay, so joining me now is the man that we go to every single year to give us the insight on global security. It's Rick McElroy, who's the Principal Cybersecurity Strategist of VMware Security Business Unit. Rick, welcome back. Always good to chat with you. How you been?
Good, good. Thanks for having me.
Very welcome, very welcome. So as I've been doing in the video, kind of going through the top 5 areas that emerged in the report, and it's a great read, and for all of our viewers watching, definitely check out the report in the description below, because there's a lot of information that I can't cover in this video, and I don't think you and me can cover in this conversation. But I wanted to kind of talk to you about how in the forward you wrote that you stated everything is different and yet the same. So how do you think cybersecurity professionals in the industry in general has adapted to the last 12 months since the last report that we spoke about?
Yeah, definitely. Look, I get to meet with CISOs, CIOs. I think I have a pretty good sense, at least from a tribal knowledge perspective, of what's happening. And so it's interesting, right? You had organizations who had already had work from home plans. Some of the more progressive organizations that were out there really had already started to embrace the cloud with this idea that workers were working from anywhere. So I think organizations who did that had a scale issue right? So they had to rapidly get a bunch of licensing for, cloud security products, turn those on. But by and large, they seemed okay. And then you had sort of everyone else who was surprised that at some point, everyone's going to work from home from an extended period of time. And I think if you had some foresight, you would know that this trend had started, much prior to the pandemic. And so really what I like to say is the pandemic really highlighted a number of areas that I think organizations weren't ready for. So as a response perspective, we've seen them move towards a cloud-first model at a 98% clip across the globe. And so I think that trend's going to continue. And really, again, what they're trying to do is drive their overall costs down, ensure uniformity of controls as users are working from wherever, as their employees are, and then ensuring that they can scale to this issue as well.
Yeah, I think that's very key. And it's interesting to see that that larger number of the 98% when we were talking about it is amazing to see. And then, as you say, as we go forward, how is that going to continue at the end of the day? And when I was talking about the number one slot just now, I was talking about the resurgence of ransomware, which is constantly evolving and seems to be talked about all the time. And then we've got, coupled with that, the work from home's unpredictable attack surfaces of, protecting, locking down, not knowing where people are. So how do you see this area evolving by the time the next report comes out and you and me are talking about this next year?
Yeah, well, look, I mean, the ransomware train's not going to stop anytime soon. It's a $1.5 trillion, cybercrime economy on the dark web, right? With Cybersecurity Ventures says it's looking to be a $10 trillion economy in the next 5 years, which is wild, right? There's a reason that leaders of nations across the globe are getting together on this topic. Simply put, organizations are being extorted, not only from a ransomware perspective, but what the attackers are also doing is using that as an opportunity to secondarily extort the organization. So gain access to another system, gain access to data, put that up for bid on the dark web, right? And so what we've seen is a rise in their business sophistication. So starting around 2016, you saw ransomware as a service start to launch. They have better metrics, they have QA, they have help desk teams. That business is not going away anytime soon. And then, so I think for organizations, we just have to understand that and then put in defensive countermeasures, train our people that this is the reality. We live in a bad neighborhood. We've built our organizations and the internet is not civilized and we're going to have to work on that. I think, look, from a work from anywhere perspective and the idea that we've increased our attack surface because now we have home devices that are plugged into the same networks of business systems that we're interacting from. Yeah, absolutely. I expect to hear a number of reports around island hopping from home networks into businesses. But one of the fundamental issues we had during the pandemic is just pure lack of visibility into what's occurring. Organizations and team, again, have chosen to use cloud security platforms to try to combat that. But at the end of the day, I think there's going to be a bunch of stuff we don't know about today that we'll find out about down the road.
I think that's fair to say. As you say, it's not going away anytime soon. It's a massive industry. Those numbers that you just told me are staggering, to say the least. So it's interesting to see how that evolves. Just to wrap up here then, interesting question to present to you. I'm curious because there's a lot of problem areas that organizations are facing. There's a lot in the report that we need to focus on, some old, some new. But if you were given a power to eradicate just one from existence, which one would you go for?
The fundamentals really bum me out. The fact that we miss application updates, we miss patching, firmware is out of date, right? And so I think for me, I'm putting an emphasis on those basics, right? Secondarily, I would tell you, I love this new movement away from passwords towards things like multi-factor authentication because we know the attackers are coming after that. But I think, look, again, thinning out your attack surface, making sure that your systems are updated as fast as possible, and having a plan for when you have to do it now because the attackers are taking advantage of that weakness to exploit you. I think that's where I think we should put an emphasis on. And it would be great to see in the future that we're able to get these critical patches out well within days instead of months.
100% agree. I think that's where we all need to be heading. Rick, thanks for coming on, giving your insights into all of this. It's a fantastic report and can't wait to speak to you soon.
No, I appreciate it. Thanks.
And there we go. That is a wrap on this week's Emerge 5 for the top 5 findings from the 2021 Global Security Insights Report. Thank you to Rick for that fantastic interview. And I'm not lying when I say it is a really fantastic report. I had a great time reading it and putting this episode together. So make sure you check it out in the description below. Now, if you're looking to continue the conversation, you can head on over to our socials at EM360Tech. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel, or for more great daily content, please head on over to em360tech.com.